A jury trial for the first of 4 men charged with the August 12, 2017 beating of DeAndre Harris after an alt-right rally in downtown Charlottesville in the Market Street parking garage began this morning in Charlottesville Circuit Court. 23-year-old Jacob Goodwin's malicious wounding trial got underway this morning with a larger-than-normal jury pool. It wasn't until after 3 p.m. when the prosecution and defense attorneys narrowed the 126-person jury pool down to 12 jurors and 1 alternate, and the judge seated the jury. After a recess, the prosecution and defense made their opening arguments. The prosecution claims that the defendant and his friends attacked Harris unprovoked, leaving him with a gash in his head and breaking his wrist. The defense claims that Harris was the aggressor and had attacked an older man, and that the defendant was attacked by Harris while trying to help the older man, and that's when Harris attacked the defendant, leaving the defendant with no choice but to defend himself. The prosecution has began their case, calling witnesses, including DeAndre Harris himself. While I was in the courtroom, I briefly spoke to the defendant's parents, who traveled 800 miles from Northwest Arkansas to be at their son's trial. His father said the defendant is holding up well and thanked me for asking. He said under advisement from his attorney that he couldn't say anything else. Goodwin's parents were sitting with 3 other individuals, 2 men and a woman. All 5 of them wore ribbons like this that said Jacob Goodwin, political prisoner. Before today's trial, if there were any doubts about whether or not Jacob Goodwin has ties to the alt-right or white nationalists, there weren't after today. Goodwin's mother introduced me to one of the men sitting with her and her husband. Meet Frances Gilroy. Gilroy is the host of StormFront Action Radio, a white nationalist radio show that airs 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Gilroy told me that StormFront is the largest white nationalist website in the country.
I'm a pro-white person. I realize that we've been stripped of our rights. We don't have any civil rights. We don't have our human rights. We don't have our God-given rights. And it's really not fair that we have 5 people sitting here in jail, all white guys, one Puerto Rican guy, and they're being held without bond. And they didn't initiate the violence. They just basically responded to the attack of BLM and Antifa, who basically corralled or herded people back to their vehicles from the alt-right. And the alt-right was following the instructions of the police, and the instructions were, you have to leave, you have to go away, it's an unlawful assembly, and you just got to leave the park, you got to leave the city. And so that's what they did. As they were walking back, they were surrounded by a massive crowd of people, harassed, just brutally yelled at. I don't know what you call it. They were just verbally assaulted and physically assaulted. One young black kid smacked some old guy over the head with a flashlight. Some other young white kids jumped in to try and help the old man. And all they want to talk about is the fact that the young black kid got smacked over the head, but they don't even want you to know that DeAndre Harris hit some old man over the head and tried to steal his flag.
Also outside of the courtroom, I caught up with Jason Kessler. Kessler is the individual that planned the Unite the Right rally back in August, and many people blame him for all of the violence and carnage that happened that day.
You're the organizer of the rally last August, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, do you have any regrets with everything that happened afterwards, with the police helicopters coming out of the sky, and with this DeAndre Harris case and the Goodwin case and the Heather Heyer thing? Do you have any regrets about anything that you did leading up to this?
No, I don't have any regrets. I do feel like it's important to learn going forward, but I tried to do the best I could with the knowledge I had at the time to have a rally that would respect public safety and respect First Amendment expression on both sides. And it was something that I made clear was very important both for my side and for people I disagreed with. The problem is the Charlottesville government set it up so that the 2 sides would fight each other. First Amendment doesn't mean that you have a right to block people's entrance into a public park or to spray them with pepper spray or hit them with sticks, and all these kinds of things were going on outside the rally. And as the past interviewer was saying, it was uncovered by a former federal prosecutor, Tim Heaphy, that it was set up to be that way. The police chief at the time, Al Thomas, said, let them fight, it will make it easier to declare an unlawful assembly. So I think that they wanted that violence, but it spiraled further out of control than they expected. For instance, everybody is familiar with the Heather Heyer incident and the car going into the crowd, but the rhetoric was so hyperbolic, people not giving due process and saying it was domestic terror or whatever. I don't believe that at all. I don't even believe that the guy, James Fields, committed murder.
I asked Kessler, despite the loss of 2 troopers in Heather Heyer and the numerous assaults that took place that day, does he still want to hold another rally? Here's what he had to say.
If you honestly believe that the government did collude to cause this violence,
Yes.
My question again would be, don't you think they'll do it again if that's what really happened? I mean, why would you go forward if you don't have a plan?
They
to
might
defeat
potentially be. Yeah, I do have a plan. So part of the issue is that I think they were able to pull the rug out from under people. They did this plan in silence. They did not want to release their plans and so on and so forth. They tried to cancel the permit only 6 days before the event, and that created a lot of uncertainty. The federal judge didn't rule that we had the permit until the night before. This time we're getting that litigation squared away about 6 months in advance. It's still ongoing, but certainly it won't be a thing where it's decided the night before. And what I want to do is have my attorney and the police department decide on a plan that's in the best interests of everybody, that protects the free speech and safety of all sides, and agree to that.
If convicted, Goodwin faces 5 to 20 years in prison, and since he's taken a jury trial, he would most likely not have any of that sentence suspended, because most judges do not suspend any time off of a jury's recommendation, and a jury can't suspend any part of a sentence they impose. Now, it's not clear yet if the jury instructions will include lesser charges, but since the defense is claiming self-defense, a jury will more than likely have the option of convicting on a lesser charge of the wounding statute. One of those lesser charge options would be unlawful wounding, which carries a much lighter sentence if convicted, of up to 12 months in jail or 1 to 5 years in a state correctional facility. The jury can consider an even lesser charge of assault and battery, which carries a maximum sentence of just 1 year in jail. The trial resumes tomorrow morning, and the jury could get the case as early as tomorrow afternoon. In downtown Charlottesville, Theo Whitelow for Breaking Through.